Hi, and welcome to Main Street AI, the podcast where traditional businesses are quietly revolutionizing their operations with artificial intelligence and winning. In this podcast, I sit down with industry leaders from law firms and professional services and other Main Street businesses to explore their AI journey. We dive into the opportunities they see, the challenges they're navigating, and the real impact of AI on their industries. Whether you're AI curious or ready to implement, this show brings you insights from leaders who are actually using this technology to serve customers better, empower employees, and drive profitable growth. Vilerka Bilbao is a Dominican, Cuban, and Venezuelan immigrant who runs a 3-attorney immigration law firm in Jacksonville, Florida, with a team of 15. Her specialty, family separation cases, human rights advocacy, and helping vulnerable communities navigate one of the most complex legal systems in America. Her proudest moment, winning a $300,000+ settlement for a father and son separated at the border for 2 months. It took over 4 years to get justice. Today they own a home. But here's what makes her approach different. She's using AI strategically to level the playing field for clients who can't afford premium legal fees. Her AI strategy is specific and controlled. The result, work that used to take weeks now takes hours. Evidence packages that used to require manual organization are now systematically compiled with both proper labeling and consistent formatting. Let's dive in. Hi, welcome back to the Main Street AI podcast. This is Stephen Whittier with Satori Coach IO. I'm joined today by Vilerka Bilbao of Bilbao Law. Vilerka, nice to have you aboard, and please tell us a little bit about yourself and your firm.
Thank you, Stephen. So I am a Dominican, Cuban, and Venezuelan immigrant. My parents came here in 1996, basically seeking a better life. And they landed in Miami like many Latin immigrants do. It's a city that welcomes you because you don't need to know the whole language, right? You don't need to know fully English, but you can incorporate into this great country. And so I grew up here a lot of my life. And my parents were not always a fan of the United States just because of the difficulties that it really is to assimilate. And they went back to Dominican Republic for some years. And I ended up coming back to the United States for college and for law school. I really liked the organization that I saw in this country as opposed to what I saw in Latin America, which was a little bit of chaos that somehow works, but chaos nonetheless. And I went into law not really thinking that I was going to do immigration, which is what I practice now. It really just hit my heart when I realized in law school I would work at a clinic. And I realized the amount of people that called speaking Spanish, asking for help and asking for immigration help. They need help in other areas as well, but if they don't have the paperwork to be able to stay here, it's impossible to really resolve anything else. So after law school, I started working for a nonprofit here locally, a nonprofit in Orlando, and then I eventually opened up my own law firm. So this is really just something that has touched my heart that made me realize people really need the service because they're so lost. It's a very difficult system to navigate. It's a system that is almost like quicksand under you, changing constantly, and people need to learn to adapt to that. And if they don't have someone, not necessarily always just holding their hand, but by their side, it's really difficult to do. So I practice immigration law, and it's really challenging. It's fun. It's very rewarding, even though it takes a long time to get what we want. I have other colleagues in different areas of law who are like, yeah, I'm done with my criminal case in about 6 to 8 months if it's a super hard case, and maybe we go to trial. And in the immigration world, that's just document gathering sometimes, depending on how big of a case it is. Or, I have clients who are waiting 5, 6, 7, 8 years for a visa to become available so that they can get their next step. So it's an interesting area, an evolving area of law.
Right. And obviously immigration is a hot button topic and has been for years. I think it always has been, but it's increased in intensity around the political domain. So for people that aren't familiar with immigration law, what would you say are some of the big misunderstandings or misconceptions that they have about what you do?
That you can just apply for a benefit, apply for your green card, apply for your citizenship and get it. It's not as simple as that. So in order to get a green card, which is permanent status to live here in the United States, you need to be able to get a visa that allows you to get a green card. There are plenty of visas out there that will never allow you to get a green card. For example, we might let an athlete in baseball come in for the baseball classic world championship. We might give them a visa to come in and only do that. We might give an actor, a dancer, a scientist. So we give plenty of temporary visas where people can come in and work and show us their talent. But there are also visas that can turn you into an immigrant, which means that allow you to then later on live here in the United States. And those are very limited. You basically have to marry someone in, have blood relatives, and not all blood relatives count. And those wait times can be years to get that paperwork. Or you have to have we call them basically very lucky categories. So you're already a millionaire in another country, you're already really high profile. We're going to welcome you in to be an immigrant because we think that the country is going to benefit you from being here. So think about maybe top surgeons in your country, if you're at the top of your game in your country, you probably could come in and get an immigrant visa. And then the last category is the basically category where something really horrible has happened to you, and there are humanitarian categories. So asylum, you've been persecuted in your home country, and your home government can harm you, and you can prove that, and there's a million hoops to jump through on that one. Trafficking victims, certain victims of violence, certain victims of domestic violence, temporary protected status, which we shift all the time, which is basically something horrible happens, like an earthquake in your country. Right now there's a fight to give that to Jamaica, which recently had a devastating hurricane go through. So we will say for a little bit of time, we'll give you some protected status where you can stay. That one doesn't automatically jump you. So there's all these benefits that might be available, but they don't all get you to the point where you can live here permanently. Right. And so that small subset of people go through a very long process. And if people really understood that, I think we would be a lot nicer to the person who is going through that process, which is long, complicated, heartbreaking at many times.
Right. As we were discussing a little bit before we went live, so the personal story of someone that was very close to me that went through a lot of this. And it looks like also, along with the immigration law, you do a lot of work with the human rights side of it as well. Could you speak to that real quick?
Yes. So for me, that looks like protecting people who are in detention. We focus a lot on advocacy, either at the state level or at the national level, for people who are in detained cases, for individuals to get due process during this entire immigration journey. And it's because our laws are created to protect everyone who is here. So our Constitution protects every single human body that is on US soil. And so that applies to immigrants as well. They do have a right to due process. They do have a right to have their cases reviewed by judges. And that process needs to be fair. And so we fight a lot on that and represent individuals who have sometimes been harmed by the government here. It's hard to win against the government because they have so much leverage. They can just put someone detained and basically convince them to self-deport, which is a lot of what's happening right now. So we try to protect people in those situations. And it's very difficult. It's very difficult. I think that's the hardest part of my job, because you don't know. If someone comes to me and says, hey, I want to get a divorce from my partner, it's a very easy process that I can foresee. These are some problems. This is going to happen. But the government is powerful, and they will break people down so that they just self-deport. And it's a lot of what's happening now in that human rights space.
It's really interesting. Pivoting over to the AI conversation, what are you seeing right now as some of the big trends in the field going on with AI?
I love AI. I am obsessed with incorporating it into our practice. I think what it's doing is it's allowing us to put research together much faster, to pull information in. and organize it for the government in a way that's consistent. So I can give you an easy example. Usually for immigration cases, you're creating an evidence package. So the immigrant is on the hook for proving their case, right? Like they're the ones who want to benefit. So it's their responsibility to make sure that their case has sufficient evidence. And sometimes the evidence is about who they are. Like this is a good person, they're a parent, they have children, they maintain a good household, they're healthy individuals, right? It might be that. But sometimes the evidence might be, hey, if we kick this person back to Venezuela right now, we're about to start a war, this would be very harmful to the family. They maybe wouldn't be able to survive. So a lot of that, what we call country condition evidence, is extensive. We find it on the internet, we find reputable sources, news articles, and AI is a really good tool to throw in a whole bunch of that information and help you organize it, help you create a really good table of content that's consistent for the government, that's labeled always properly, which took hours to do if you were doing manually before. So I think that is going to allow people to have much more prepared cases in the future, as long as they're using good tools, you know, and not the hallucinating AI. We can't, that's not good for clients.
Absolutely. How are you controlling for that right now? Because I've talked quite a bit to some different attorneys that are, you know, using some of the main LLM tools and everything. And it became clear to me, working in AI myself, that a lot of people are using it and getting some benefit, but they also don't understand how to control for those types of things like hallucinations. Are you doing anything in particular to get around that so it's not an issue for you?
Yes, and I think part of it is educating your team and how to use it, and different tools provide you, you know, different results. So for example, I use ChatGPT a lot to write like certain memos for my team. Like, hey everyone, a client came into the office and they're picking up this document. This is how I want the procedure to be. So maybe typing up standard operating procedures for your business, or helping you write a quick email with some links to your team might be something that you can do on ChatGPT, and one of these that does hallucinate, right? However, doing research is not something that I would ever do there. Right. We have at least for immigration, and this is where your own different practice area is good to connect with your colleagues. In the immigration space, we have someone who created a closed universe AI, where the only data that it can access is case law, regulations, cases that have been published books that are basically our go-tos or Bibles for immigration. So when you do research on that website, or when you upload documents and cross-reference them, you know the information that you're getting. You know that it's not just going onto some random website and getting incorrect information. So I think that's where those almost like particularized tools for your practice going to help you be able to do that research and control for that, for, you know, making sure that you're not giving, you know, false information, not only to clients, but even to the government. Everything I submit to the federal government. So, you know, I need to make sure that that all my I's and T's, I don't know the phrase in English, but
yeah. No, what you're saying is exactly right. So this is, you get it. This is the type of thing that, you know, I've helped people with, is exactly that. So you can make sure that you can closely control the parameters of what it is that you're pulling from when you're interacting with AI. That's really smart. Are there any fears or uncertainties or anything like that you're seeing out there right now? Maybe you're feeling it, or maybe it's more you're not feeling it, but you're seeing it in the industry and amongst your colleagues.
Yeah, I mean, there's people who are embracing AI and who are going to be able to ramp up their businesses and create even quality products. And then there's going to also be the people who don't embrace it. You know, it's like the people who never embraced, you know, a computer. Yes. And then in 2005 are having to learn how to type, when that should have been 1996, 97. And so now you've got a 10-year advantage over those businesses. And then AI is accelerating the growth. It's like exponential. Because what you can, I think what you're saving on a lot is labor.
Yes.
And so labor in the United States is expensive. And if it also gives you a better work product, it's making you a profit at the end of the day. So I think it's who embraces it and who doesn't, that's going to sort of make the difference.
Right. There's always a first mover advantage. And then there's also the laggards, like you said, that are always waiting to sit back and see, oh, is this a fad? And they don't understand. It's not, it's here. As you mentioned, it's rapidly accelerating. So be really smart to get on board early and start to get fluent with this new technology. So these things don't pass you by. If we were having this conversation, say 5 years from now, what do you think is going to look radically different in your field, and what do you think will look pretty much the same?
Oh, I mean, I hope the law that looks radically different in 5 years, to be honest. At least in my side of things. It's hard to defend people when the law is just minefield after minefield, and you're just, trying to sort of navigate that. But in terms of like the business, the AI, I think it's going to make doing cases for people so much easier. It's going to help us with the sort of like human component of it's slow to go through hundreds of pages of research and pull the perfect quotes for the judge to read that apply specifically to this case. If you have to read them, every time that you do a case, which is usually why attorneys specialize so much. I have a friend who does visas for people who are jockeys who come in to ride and do races in the United States. Like that is so specialized. And it's because once you have something templated out, once you know that very little area of law, you can just kind of run that consistently and you don't have to change much from case to case. With AI, we're going to be able to have a much bigger range of specialties because it will be able to sort of individualize everything so easily and so quickly. Even if it took an hour to generate a packet, an hour is 2% of what we were spending on that.
Yeah, that's very significant. I'll turn a little bit now just to talk about your practice in a little more depth. What would you say is it that your firm does extraordinarily well and would make you unique?
One thing is access to the language. So everyone in my firm, except one girl, speaks Spanish, and 98% of our clients are Spanish speaking. When you are able to connect with someone on the same language and usually the same culture, it's easier for them to understand where you're coming from, what type of case you have, the situations that you would face back home. I always recommend that immigrants find someone from their country who speaks their language to be their immigration lawyer. You might not always have that luxury, but if you're near a big city, I recommend that. And it's just, right now, if I had to explain the history of Russia and a Russian asylum, I'm not Russian, I don't understand Russia. I'm sure that there are very great cases, but a Russian attorney would understand that and wouldn't have to do the level of research that I would have to do, right, in order to represent you in court. So I think language access is something that's big. And then the second part is I have worked in every single position of a law firm, from being a paralegal to answering the phones at a legal clinic, to then being a law clerk, so I've had to see sort of all of those, and I understand the client's experience at all of those points. The client always wants to talk to the attorney. And so we've designed our firm to give a good client experience and also free up our attorneys to do the legal work that they need to do, which is extensive these days. And it keeps the client happy because they're being walked through during their experience. They understand what their next step is. They understand the expectation of, hey, this is going to take at least a year for the government to make a decision on this. So it's easier to plan with them in these long-term cases. So I think that makes us different. We can connect to the client, and so that resonates with them.
That's great. And how big is your team, size of your firm, number of attorneys?
Yeah, so we have 3 attorneys, including myself, and a team of 15. Everybody else is either half of them are paralegals and legal assistants, and the other half is basically an admin team. Immigration law is very admin heavy. There's other areas and practices where you can easily have maybe 1 paralegal per attorney, but there's so much paperwork that needs to be, gathered from clients that, yeah, the admin team we wouldn't survive without them, let me say.
Excellent. Is there maybe one of your proudest moments you could share with some outcome that you've gotten for a client?
Yes. I have at some point during the first Trump administration, I took on cases of family separation. So where people were seeking asylum at the border, they had children, and then they were being separated from their children. We've been able to manage to get money back for a family that was separated for about 2 months. This family and all the families in this sort of world seem to be people who were very low levels of education that the government sort of targeted, and that who also didn't have any family members or links to the United States. And so almost like the most vulnerable people ended up in these situations. Somebody who was coming through the border and had family here who maybe could assert their rights, we just never found them in those positions for one reason or another. It took more than 4 years for the government to recognize that the separation of this father and son had been improper. The son was about 9 years old when he entered. The father he had a huge machete cut on his neck. Somebody had attempted to take his life in Honduras, and that was the reason why he was seeking help in the United States. And they have been able to now buy a house. The child obtained the money as a minor, so that now when he turned 18 recently, he had the entire amount of the settlement. It was over $300,000 for them. And then we've also been able to get them driver's licenses and temporary status. They're still in the asylum process seeking their permanent status, but right now they do have legal status. And unless they commit a crime, they shouldn't be up for deportation. So I think that's a big one that is very close to my heart, because I've seen them since the moment they came into the country. I've seen the government harming them. And then it's been so difficult. I mean, it took me more than 3 years to get this gentleman a driver's license. And partly because he can't read and write properly, but also partly because of the immigration documents. He wasn't eligible for more than 2 years to get a driver's license. So those stories, they're always going to be here.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's powerful. In terms of the business side, where would you say that you're at right now in terms of like a growth stage with the practice, and where would you like to be in 12 months from now?
Yeah, so definitely at a growth stage, even though it's a scary time to grow, given I've had a lot of clients recently call me and say, hey, I am not going to do this. I'm not going to survive 2 or 3 more years of this rhetoric. Me and my family are going to decide to leave. And they just close out their contracts and close their cases. So it is a scary time to try and grow the business, but be here for our community. I think that one of the reasons why I do this, I realize that my community needs me. It needs more individuals representing them. They need more voices. And so if I shrink down thinking and being scared about the economy and being scared about, the business aspect of it, then I won't actually be serving my community. It would be a disservice to them. So I'm definitely in a growth stage. I'm hoping in the next 5 years to maybe double in size. But I also have such a great team and structure right now that we do really big projects together that have a lot of success. So as long as we can just maintain that, I would also just be extremely happy, because I know the amount of families that we can help with the team that we have. 3 attorneys allows us to go to trials, potentially in 3 different cities in one day. So, it's whatever it looks like in 5 years, if we're maintaining the same, I would be extremely happy.
Great. My magic wand question is basically around removing constraints. So if you could wave a magic wand and fix something in the business that's either holding you back or slowing you down right now, what would that be?
I think I fear charging clients a lot more money. Not I think, I know. I'm afraid that it would price them out. Because the reality is, for a lot of people don't do their paperwork because it is that expensive. You're having to invest sometimes $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 into a process and not still get the final result without a guarantee that you are going to get that final result. If you instead save that money, you may be able to buy a house back home. You may be able to start a business back home. You may be able to invest that and make more money, and put yourself in a better position for when you leave. So the hesitation of clients in paying more money, especially paying up front. So we try to eliminate that in certain ways. One, we've partnered with banks starting this year so that they can finance their cases through a bank and not directly with us. We offer payment plans, but the other part has been sort of like breaking down the case in steps. Like, this steps takes about a year. This is what we're going to do now, because also people's lives change. So sometimes, 3 years down the line, something happens and they decide to go back home, or they get married, or they have children. So because plans change, it's almost like keeping our pricing structure also flexible in that way. That's, I think, my biggest challenge. If I can figure that out, I think it would be just so much easier. But and AI is helping us with this. We've made changes into making sure that we are recording every single minute that we're spending with a case, so that we can price things out and really see, like, this is the cost, right? And if I want to be at a certain profit margin, this is what we need to be charging for this process. But that's hard. All of that is hard, because what we want to do is file a case for a client and get them their receipt, and that's some protection here in the United States. And so the business always sort of comes second to the law part. Right.
Totally understandable. How are people finding you? Like, are you doing any, in terms of your pipeline, people coming in because you're doing advertising? Is it all just referral based? How does that work?
So minimal advertising. I started doing long form videos in YouTube about 5 years ago, just talking about case types, about what things that you can apply for, certain types of cases, news that was happening. And I didn't have as many clients then, so it was easier to do. And so I have just maintained social media. I don't do as much as I would really love, because it's time consuming, and I've done it all myself so far. But it's mostly referral based and social media. Every now and then I will put $20 on a post to, but it's so minimal. And I shouldn't do this as a business owner. My coach tells me this, but we turn off, I call it our faucet, all the time. There are months where I say, no, we're not doing consultations this month, schedule them for next month. Like, we just can't handle. We have 3 trials this week, or, so as a business owner, I don't want to do that. But realistically, we have to service the clients that we have. And with people getting detained, cases are shifting a lot. I have to take care of my babies.
Yes, absolutely. And then where I usually like to wrap the conversations is just talking about kind of your personal why. It's clear from talking to you already that you're very community focused and purpose driven. But aside from the success of the business itself, could you say a little bit about what's your personal drive and motivation for doing what you do every day?
Yeah, I never knew that I wanted to study law. I have actually been, I feel like, in training for all my life for this, now when I look back at it. But I just always knew that I wanted to be a humanitarian and help people. I think that's, I grew up very Catholic, going to church. My mom always made us donate things. It just very much like you give back to your people and you support. And I knew I wanted to do something with that. And when I got into law school, I realized how much I loved it, and saw the need for my community. So it was very easy to sort of decide immigration. And sometimes I question why, because it's a very emotionally charged area. I used to think maybe family law was going to be emotionally charged, but I see some of my colleagues who do criminal law, who do federal work. And, in lawsuits, you're always dealing with an affected party, somebody who's been harmed. So there's always that, but immigration just seems it's a lot. It's a lot. Our colleagues, we recognize it, and we have to take steps to make sure that we don't burn out. But I think that's it. I just have always wanted to be a helper. And this is the biggest way in which I feel like I can contribute and help in a meaningful way. Because I know what that did for my parents. When my parents became US citizens, me and one of my sisters also became US citizens. We were minors. And that allowed us to have an American passport, travel all around the world, which is not something that I could have done with a Venezuelan or Cuban or Dominican passport. That wouldn't have been a thing. And so study in this country. Me and my sisters have all gone to college and studied something that we like, open a business. I don't think that in Dominican Republic, a woman in her early 30s could just go to a bank and maybe open up a business, get a loan. So the opportunities, I know what that did for me and my family. I know how different we would have lived if we stayed in DR. So sometimes I see the parents and I really look at the kids and I know I'm doing the work that's for those kids. Those parents might never learn English. Those parents might never even open up their business. Their children will do it. And so that just, it fuels you in such a personal, deep way. Yeah.
I love it. Your clients are lucky to have you because you have that perspective. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much for the conversation today. It was really great. Appreciate it.
Stephen, thank you for having me.
Just last thing is, how can people find you?
Yes, so we are located in Jacksonville, Florida. We actually just moved to a downtown location. And we are also online. You can find me at Abogada Vilerka. Also just BilbaoLaw.com, and that'll be able to link you to our YouTube channel, and sort of everything that we post on there. I would say though, if you feel connected to me and you're not living in Florida, do your research and find another attorney close to you. I think that this world of immigration law, you need someone close, because it's going to cost a lot extra. It's already expensive. It's going to cost a lot extra to fly out your attorney to another state for hearings. And I also think the comment that I made about culture, someone who's in your own culture, who speaks your own language, I think it's extremely important. And then the last thing that I would say is, if you don't know where to start finding someone, there's an organization called AILA, American Immigration Lawyers Association. There's over 18,000 immigration lawyers who are connected to that organization that helps us train, learn, and they have a directory. So you can put, what city you're in, what radius you need it from, and what languages that person speaks, what kind of practice they have, and you'll get a list of people who are nearby. So definitely do your research and find someone from your own culture. I think that's an advantage right there. And we need all the advantages we can in this system, to be honest.
Right. That's a great, thank you for mentioning that resource. That's a great value add. Thanks so much for the conversation today.
Thank you, Stephen.
All right. Take care.